Welcome to everybody listening to us and viewing.
My name is Michele Costa.
My name is Ellen Deboeck.
Nice to see you today. The term greenwashing comes from the hospitality sector.
And that was one of the best experiences of my life.
Welcome into my living space for today, Guillemette. I am conducting my catch-ups and my podchats in the heart of Brussels. Very exciting. And I decided that this is a type of way of communicating in a more intimate way. And it can celebrate some highs and some lows of new conversations. And for the ones that are listening in, my name is Ellen Deboeck. I've been working in the hospitality industry for about 2 decades and counting. And the topic of today is touching on sustainability in the hospitality world. And I don't think that's no longer a surprise. It's no longer the most talked about topic, however, still very important, especially because it affects our communities, our energy, the way we work, etc., etc. So to start off, my first question would kind of be, are we just ticking off boxes in terms of sustainability, or are we actually changing the way we operate? And so before I'm going to ask you to answer the questions, I would say thank you, Raphaella and Guillemette, for being here with me today. I would propose you just introduce yourself, your role, and then afterwards maybe go to the question, are we really ticking the boxes, and what is sustainability for you? Raphaella.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Raphaella. I am the sustainability manager for 23 hotels that are located in Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, and the UK. So what is sustainability for me? I think it's a way of living. You were asking if we are just ticking the box.
Exactly.
Maybe it's not the answer that you want to hear, but if we are just factual, the answer might be yes. And the reason why I'm saying that is because there is a much bigger legislation that just came into practice just this year in 2025 for big corporation, which is called the CSRD reporting. That stands for Corporate Social Responsibility Directive. And this is a very comprehensive legislation that is asking the company to do more in terms of non-financial. And I would say that there is quite a lot of boxes to tick. So if we are just really factual, I might say yes.
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear. So we are ticking boxes at the moment.
Yes, I would say yes. Even though we can clearly see that there is a change of mindset, and some people are really embedding and embracing sustainability. If we are simply factual, then yes.
Yeah. How do you see that, Guillemette?
Hello, everyone. Hi, Hélène, Raphaella. So my name is Guillemette, and I'm sustainability coordinator for 6 hotels in Belgium. And for me, sustainability means that sustainability goes to a maximum of all our stakeholders in the hospitality industry. How I discovered sustainability in general in the hospitality sector, a while back when I was traveling in India, I was in Agra, where the Taj Mahal is. And I remember seeing this huge, beautiful hotel chain near a slum. And I really remember wondering, I was 19 at the time, and I remember wondering, how is this hotel really bringing a value to the local community? And so that's when I started thinking, okay, I want to be in the hospitality sector, but how do I see the hospitality sector evolving? And so for me, that's what sustainability is that it goes to a maximum of all the stakeholders that let the hospitality live, basically. And so I agree with Raphaella, we are ticking boxes, but it's by ticking those boxes that are for now obligatory, and it's in the hope that it's going to become more and more just something normal and a must, and not just a nice to have. And so the mindsets will change and will evolve thanks to the fact that the legislation is becoming stronger and stronger, as Raphaella said.
And it brings conversation to the table as well, I assume, in any situation, whether it's a hospitality industry or even at home. But working with the hotels, we know that sustainability in hospitality is just not about having different types of plastic bags or recycling, etc. And it's really how we manage our resources, I would say, reduce our footprint. But then, according to some various sources, I've done some research as well, the hotel industry accounts for around 7% of the global carbon emissions. And in Europe, okay, it's estimated to be similar. I would rather say it sounds like a small number if you look at it on paper, but then it can add up very fast if you look at the thousands of properties that we have in Europe. But when people say sustainability in hotels, do you think that they misunderstand? What do they misunderstand the most is actually my question. And are we bold enough or to say it out loud that we're talking about greenwashing? Raphaella, how do you see that?
Yeah, and you just said that the tourism industry accounts for 7% of the global emission, but sometimes the tourism industry overlaps with the real estate industry or the F&B industry, and we know that food and beverage accounts for 30% of the global emissions. And I think what the biggest misunderstanding, as much as yes, of course, eliminating single-use plastic is very important. What really contributes to the fossil fuel and the CO2 emission is actually energy. So where we can have the biggest impact is by cutting our energy consumption. So installing solar panel, wind, etc., etc. That would be where we can make the biggest impact in terms of cutting the CO2 emission.
But talking about solar panels, we're talking about large investments as well. So we're talking about sustainability brings cost efficiency as well to the table. Isn't then that at that moment that we're looking at larger investments as well, a commitment from the larger industries?
Yes, totally. And there is definitely a return on investment when we are talking about sustainability. The first thing that we all did in the hotels, it's to stop the small shampoo bottle and just refill them, buying in bulk. There's definitely a financial benefit when you refilling your chemicals or your shampoo, so you don't have to pay for the plastic bottle that create extra waste, etc., etc. But there is also this potential misconception that every single time that we touch on sustainability, there is a return on investment, but that's not the case. We need to also be ready to invest and not expect a straightaway return. Some of those big investments are like a solar panel, like a heat pump, like a gas phase out, have a return on 5 to 7 years. And it's important to mention that then we can also use behavioral change to maximize the use of those technology and use them to their best potential.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to piggyback on that greenwashing again to you, Guillemette, because you were sharing some interesting facts about that behind the scene.
Indeed. Did you know actually that the term greenwashing comes from the hospitality sector? So I didn't know that myself. I learned that last year. And basically, it was ecologist activist who went to Thailand, I think. And he saw the little card that all hotels have, please reuse your towels. And so he considered that that was green washing, coming from the washing of the towels, because the hotel wanted to minimize the impact on the planet by reusing the towel, but behind the resort was expanding more and more, going into the resources. And he also considered that it was just for the costs and not for the environmental impact. So then now this term greenwashing is being widely used. So that's the most important aspect of
and so that we
greenwashing.
understand the terminology as well. And
indeed.
I think it's important to be confronted with the facts and the figures and what it really means, and that it's just more than a nice sentence and a nice to have. Correct.
I think indeed, and to not greenwash, the most important thing that companies in the hospitality sector needs to do, it's really to have proof, efficient, the numbers, the facts, to not just say, oh, we're going to save the planet. No, that's not what we want to sell. It's not because we've just put some recycling bins. Also, that's not it. It goes much further than that. So really, that's really what greenwashing is about planting trees also. Is planting trees really having a wild world effect that we want to? Is it really taking this CO2? Not sure. So that's why the hospitality sector needs to be careful about, indeed.
Absolutely, and understanding it all. There was something that I was thinking about as well that I wanted to ask you both before we go to two other very interesting topics like AI and inclusion, which is equally important. But if there is any particular initiative in your careers or in your career, Raphaella, that you've been that you've rolled out and that you were quite surprised by the impact, whether it was good or bad, is there anything that you can share?
Yes, absolutely. But just bouncing back on the greenwashing, I just wanted to add one very clear example that we have all witnessed in terms of greenwashing. I don't know if you remember, not very long ago, Booking.com had this little leaf on their page, so it will show that that will be a sustainable hotel. And this actually, they had to remove this sustainability program simply because it was self-declare. Each hotel could write what was their sustainability credential. There was no check, no auditing done behind. And this was a clear example of greenwashing. So very before being called out on that, they had to remove their program. And I think it was quite tight before they had actually probably a green claim coming from the European Union. But yes, that's also another example of what greenwashing can look like.
Absolutely. Yeah, indeed.
Indeed.
But yes, one initiative that I didn't expect will have such a good impact. We have been working with diversity and inclusion since 2023. And last year, we set a goal in terms of socially marginalized group. And this is a recruitment goal. So the idea is to partner with a local charity or association and start working with people that are very far from the employment market. And it took a little while to get on board, but once some of the hotel got on board, it really had the impact that we could not expect before. So we worked with in Belgium with an association. And without realizing it, in a few months, we recruited 15 people coming from this channel. And they had various reasons for being far from the employment. Either they've been unemployed for a while, or they could have a disability, or they had an accident. And it took them a while to come back on the employment market. But thanks to this partnership, we employed 15 people. And the most beautiful thing is that in each hotel, we had some feedback saying like, they are the employee of the month. After 1 or 2 months of working with us, those people have been employee of the month. So this is definitely one of the success story that I did not expect.
I believe that we are able to say that sustainability is hugely important in the branding, equally as retention for the company itself, I would
Indeed.
say. If you take a look at the different generations, especially Gen Z, who is looking for purpose, for example, as well in the role that they fulfill, whether it's for work or on personal life, I think it is very important to share the message, especially when you're taking all of the correct initiatives, like you mentioned, Guillemette, that everything is factual and that we're really doing something in the hotel or in the hotels that on the long term as well make a big difference. That would mean as well, I'm not a Gen Z, but it is equally important to me to know, okay, what is my company doing? And do I want to be associated with it, yes or no? So that's a really nice share. Do you have anything to share on that, Guillemette?
I do indeed. So when I started working in sustainability in one of the hotels 2 years ago, I started by doing activities on climate change in general, so that the staff could know a bit more of what is happening in the world. Because I think there's also this misunderstanding of the planet warming up, and they don't really understand why and how. So for us to really have a true impact in terms of behavior change, as Raphaella was saying earlier, they need to know why and how, and to have the right knowledge about sustainability and why we're putting all of this, that we're not just asking them to be a bit more careful, that we're taking off chemical products, etc., just because. No, they need to understand the why. And so, yeah, that the Gen Z generation, I think, is also asking more and more that of when they're applying to somewhere, they want to be aware of that the company is being as virtuous as possible and as ethical as possible. And I think it's really important to take into account. So those creating awareness has been, I think, for me, the best surprise and the best impact that I've had in the past 2 years. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I fully agree with that, because it's thanks to them asking those questions that we are forced in a good way to share what we're really doing. So kudos and thanks that we're there. So can we move on to AI?
Indeed, yes.
Before we need to close off, because everybody needs to go back on the road. But AI, our friends, the the hottest topic around in town. I don't think it's going to disappear any moment now. But AI or the smart tourism revolution. I know, Raphaella, you have a lot of knowledge in terms of systems, what we're using or what you can recommend we should be using. But how actively are we actually using the AI systems, and to what measure do you believe that we need to increase or not use at all?
There is more and more technology that are going to be ready for us in the hospitality industry. And one of them that we are using is helping us to monitor our food waste. So the system is, we are throwing our food waste in the bin, and the system is classifying it in terms of categories, is recognizing what it is, and helps the chefs making more informed decision and understand where the waste is coming. Is it coming from our overproduction? Is it coming from our trimming? Are we chopping the vegetables correctly, or are we leaving too much flesh? Or is it our guests that have a wrong behavior and that we need to address? So this is one system that we've been using for 2 years now, where we have been able to cut 55% of our food waste. And then who knows what's next? Robots that will clean rooms, another system that will help us calculate our CO2 emission, that will help us analyze our data. This is very exciting moment when we're mixing those two topics, AI and sustainability. I think the possibilities are infinite, and I'm really looking forward to see what's coming next.
Me too. I'm quite excited.
Indeed, yeah.
Guillemette, do you have a little robot on the side?
Not yet, no. No, but I do think that regarding the food waste, it's been a really powerful tool, and giving us especially because if you want impact, you need to be able to measure where the food waste is coming from, and the AI has been really helping with that by detecting automatically what food is going into the bin, and so that's been really powerful and helpful for the staff.
Helps
also,
you to correct
and for the chefs. And indeed, yeah. Indeed.
Where do we go from here? I believe it's quite clear that sustainability is not only a catchy word, but it's also a mindset that we need to have. I fully agree with that. I'm really thrilled myself that I'm surrounded by great, knowledgeable women like yourself in this industry, because it is by doing those things together that you can make that change. That is first and foremost. But before we really close off, I have one last question for you both. And the question goes that if you need to make one change tomorrow in every hotel, then what you want it to be, Raphaella?
You know, sustainability is so transversal from, we mentioned earlier, from our housekeeping and their use of chemical, their use of towels and linen. Then it goes to the kitchen with our food waste, with our waste, with even the impact of the more sustainable ingredients that can potentially impact human right down the supply chain, to the paper printing at reception, to the light and energy efficiency in the maintenance, that the guest implication as well, that it's going to be very hard to find just one thing, because sustainability touches every single domain. So I would say if we do what we do properly, that will probably be transformative. But if I really have to pick one, and as we were just talking about the food waste earlier, I think this is the area I would pick. I really, really like the zero waste mindset, and I would love to see our chefs working slightly more with that, because I think that, first of all, it can bring so much creativity, cost savings. It's, instead of creating food and spending time and payroll and workforce chopping all those food that is going to end up in the waste, creates more an extra bill for our food waste, etc., etc. I really think that this will be very, very, very impactful.
It will, for sure. We want it all, but it's difficult sometimes to focus on one particular thing. What about you, Guillemette?
Just to bounce back on what Raphaella just said, indeed, for me, my grand dream is that all the hospitality sector and all the sectors in general manage to go towards more of a circular economy, rather than this linear economy that we have right now, where we take something and we throw it away directly. So that's really the main goal for me. The main goal is the zero waste also. So that's really a really powerful impact, I would say. But another really important impact that it would have on the planet is really cutting down on animal products in our restaurants. 25% of gas green effects emissions come from the agricultural sector, from the methane that's being emitted. And that's where I think if all the restaurants of all the hotels in the world would at least reduce their menu, their CO2 emissions by just 10%, or just adding a bit more vegetarian options and asking the guest to go in that direction, I think it would have a huge impact. We work with a tool that grades the emissions of the plate, so it goes from A to E, and that's a really powerful tool also, because if we want to reach 2 tons of CO2 per year, our diet is really, really important. So I think the hospitality sector has a huge impact on that.
We have some work to do, I believe.
We do, indeed.
Yeah, well, it's we need to be aligned with the mindset and as well with our actions. But Raphaella, Guillemette, thank you so much.
Thank you,
really
Ellen.
appreciate your time spending with me my new living room. Hope you liked it. And my name is Ellen Deboeck. This was Sustainability in Hospitality. Thank you.
Thank you, Hélène.